And one day the men, we stopped to offer. And when we did, the first, what we call Ragnarok, happened. The first destruction. They knew there would be 3 destructions. The first destruction of this planet happened. We stopped to offer. It's in the Bible where it says, when man turned his face away from the God. And when we did, this planet started to fall over. And in 3 months and 90 days, the planet now went from this spinning in harmony, this planet started to fall over. And the sea evaporated up to the top of the ball and the bottom, and the ice came down, and the ice age began. We lost the paradise. The man didn't offer anymore to the All-Father. And this brings us to the ice age, which I'll start. There's one thing else I'd like to say before I leave the paradise. These people, they lived according to 8 powers. Before the religion, we lived according to nature powers. And these 8 powers, they go like this. Hel, Bock, Udin, Ra, Tur, Frey, Freya. Hell, because we come from hell. Hell is the North Pole. Hell is where Helsinki is today. Hell is home. Hel, Bock. Bock, because we come from the Bock family. Because we come from the E of the Bock. Hel, Bock, Udin. Udin is the sun. Udin is the ring. It's the 4th power. It's the force. Hel, Bock, Udin, Ra. Ra is in the sperm. Ra is in the moon. Ra is the king. Hel, Bock, Udin, Ra, Tur. Tur is the 6th power. And now I'm going to explain the Tur. 7th power is Frey, masculine, and the 8th power is Freya. The infinity is the female, the 8th power. But before we go to this next part of the story, I want to explain this Tur, because Tur is what this story is based around. It's the sound te, u, air, or T-O-R in English, Tur. Like create, Tur. Create means to make, and Tur is Tur, so maybe if we can create Tur, maybe that's how we get out of this mess we're in. And I'll explain Tur now. Very small explanation. Backwards, T-U, air. Backwards, air-U, te, root. So the root, from the root, we get the Tur. And Tur, for the man, this is the man's Tur. It's his Tur's hammer, they call it. Every man has one Tur. Every woman also has one Tur. Her Tur is called Kli Tur Ri Es. And Kli, in root language, Kli means to scratch or tickle. Tur is her Tur inside, her Tur. Also, Klit, Lit means light, or Lit also means little. So the woman has a little Tur, full of light, the Klit. So she Kli, her Tur, she can re means again and again and again, and Es means the sun. So if a woman, if she Kli her Tur, she can re the sun in her eyes. Kli Tur Ri Es. And for man, this is his Tur. So this story is about Tur. And Tur, the symbol for the Tur is the X. And X is your best friend, your heart friend, is your Tur friend. So when you say this, you're saying this is your best friend. And you can only have one Tur friend at a time. And every child at 7 years old got their first tour friend. And tour is where Thursday comes from. Tours Day, Tours Dog. So on Tours Day, you go touring around with your tour friend, your best friend. We're all born with certain nature gifts. And at 7 years old, each girl had to have one girl as her tour friend. Because a girl can speak to another girl about things that she can't speak to about her tour. And a guy, we had to have a guy as our tour friends because I needed a tour friend to talk about my tour, a masculine. So women had tour friends, heart friends, and men, we had heart friends. And Tours Day is Tours Day, Thursday. And let's say my friend Elvis here, we're two small boys, 7 years old, and I looked at him, and this guy, he can just pick up musical instruments. Few hours he's making something nice come out of him. I mean, it's got a nature gift that he has some kind of, Odin gave him. We're all born with nature gifts. And gosh, I would love to be able to play music instruments like him, but it's not my gift. But he looks over to me and he sees Jim has perfect pitch. I can sing. And God, he'd love to sing, but that wasn't the nature gift he got. He can play, but he can't sing. So for 3 years, Elvis and I, we would be like this. We would be tour friends. We would be best friends. And we would go all over together. And in this 3 years, he would teach me how to play these musical instruments. I'll never be as good as him because it was his nature gift. But after 3 years, I'm going to be playing the drums with the rest of the guys. I know he's taught me. And in 3 years, I've taught him how to sing. He was never going to be as good as me because it was my nature gift. But he has no fear about singing. His tour friend taught him how to sing, so he sings with the rest of the guys like everybody else. And the girls had the tour too. There were things that... And every 3 years you got a new tour friend, a new best friend, a new heart friend. But before Elvis and I, we would leave each other, I would find the most beautiful little stone in the nature. I would polish it. I put a nice hole into it. And I give my best friend this stone, this tour bead. And he put it on one string on his neck. And he the same. He found the most beautiful stone because I'm his best friend. And he polished the most beautiful stone and he put a hole in it and he gave it to me. And every 3 years you got a new best friend, trading the nature gifts. So every 3 years a new, and by the time I'm 70, 80, 90 years old, I may have 20, 25 of these stones. Each one representing a very, very close friend that I had in my life who I traded my nature gifts and got their nature gift. So as we got older in this tour system, we became more and more and more and more instead of less and less and less and less. And this tour is very important, and this next story I think is one of the most important stories in this whole story. I want to talk about the heart. This Valentine candy box, this symbol of Cupid, this love guy with the bow and arrow, which is not killing anybody, it means fertility. So the bow and arrow was a fertility symbol. So we have this design of this heart. They say the heart is the most sensitive place of the body. They say the heart is where love comes from. In the English, we say the heart is in the center, the heart of the matter, the heart of the tree. But this pump up here at 11 o'clock is not in the center. You can take this heart out, put a plastic, and still love somebody. So our love doesn't come from this pump. It doesn't look anything like a heart. It's not that sensitive. They say your heart's the most sensitive place of your body. So where could this where could this form of a heart be? In our story, this is called pumpa, or pump. It pumps your blood. But if you look, let's say at a man, it's easier to see on the man. It's more obvious. If you look to the head of his tour, it looks like one apple with the stem taken out. If you look at the end of it, it's the third eye. A man has two eyes in this head, but there's a head that hangs in four, a forehead. This hang in four in front of this head. And in this forehead is another eye. It closes and opens and closes and opens. It spits the dragon. This is the third eye of Shiva. There's no third eye up here. That's my forehead, but this is my forehead. And if you look at this guy when he's standing up and he's really like thinking about love now, and he look in the mirror, the bottom of his decoration is shaped like one heart. And this is the most sensitive place of the body for the man. It's his love, it's his heart. Thousands and thousands of books about the heart, and everybody covers their pump, and everybody talks about the heart. But this ain't the heart. There's no love that comes from this. When I see someone who attracts me, it goes through my brain, and now there's one flash that goes down through the chakra, and now the heart becomes heart. It has nothing to do with the pump. This has nothing to do with love. And the connection between the brain and the heart, in root language they call the brain yarna, and they call the heart yarta. Yarna, the knowledge, and yarta, the tour. So, in a woman, she has the same thing. She has her little clitoris. In the bottom, the top is one apple. The end is where she climaxes from, the eye. And the bottom of her clitoris is shaped like a heart. It's the most sensitive place of your body. It's in the center of your body. It's where your love comes from. It's when you give your heart to somebody. You're not giving them your pump. You're giving them your heart. So in our story, the heart is a different story than what they tell today. This is the pump. This is the most sensitive part of my body. Slam me in my chest, but please don't hit me in my heart, because it really is my most sensitive place. Just the understanding of the heart can change the minds of the people on this planet. We have no idea where our heart is. It's not here in the middle of our chest. Our heart is down here on the bottom of our most sensitive place. It's our tour. It's just little things like this can change the minds of people. I think if we can start to think like this is all logic. I don't believe it looks like a heart. I know, I've looked at it. I'll go maybe a little bit more into the heart later. But now when I see people put my heart, I have to laugh, because there's no love that comes from this pump over here. It's not in the middle, it's 11 o'clock way up here. So the heart story. One story that Eeyore gave to me about where the real heart is. Are we still going?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm going to leave the paradise, and now we're going to start to come into a really kind of a nice part of the story. This next part of the story is called Atlantis. Atlantis, which we call Atlantis. Alt means all the, Lan means land, and East means ice in root language. All land ice. Atlantis. And when this pole when it fell over, this happened 50,010,030 years ago. And where hell was before, it slowly, over 3 months, the planet fell over. The sea evaporated up, the top and the bottom, and the east, the ice came down. And the whole top of the planet is covered in kilometers and kilometers of ice, and the bottom is covered with kilometers. And the Ice Age begins. 50,010,030 years ago, on the 24th of July, the Ragnarok Day, called Christina Day. And when this ice came down the top and the bottom, it formed one ice cap on the very top, and all northern Europe, Northern America, North India, all this top, Russia, Sweden, Finland, all became under ice, all the way down to the Pyrenees Mountains, all the way down to Texas. And on the whole top of the ball, everybody froze to death. There's not so much land on the bottom. It's just a little Australia, a little Africa down there, a little South America. So not much happened down there. But this whole top of the planet, kilometers of ice, and all the people on the top of the ball, they froze. 90 days, 3 months, it slowly tilted 23 degrees. And these people who lived in hell, now something really incredible happened. As this planet had tilted over, we get a new North Pole. The real pole is still over here, and this island is still there. It's in front of Helsinki. That's the true North Pole today. But now we call this ice on top, we call this the North Pole because it's straight up. But there's no pole going there. The pole's over here. And as this ice cap formed on the top from this ice, there's some warm water that comes from the Gulf of Mexico. It's called the Gulf Stream. And this warm water comes up next to England. Still today they have palm trees in the south of England. And this warm water was coming up to Mexico, and it had always gone over the top of the planet. But now, as it hit this ice cap, this warm water couldn't go over anymore because the whole top of the planet's covered in ice. The warm water couldn't turn around and go back to Mexico because there's more warm water coming behind it. It's a current of warm water coming out from the south, from the tropics. So this warm water came up to this ice, it couldn't go back to Mexico. So it followed the coast of England down to the coast of Germany, went straight into the Gulf of Finland, to where Helsinki is today. And there this warm water came into the Gulf of Finland, went to where Leningrad, where St. Petersburg is today. And there it couldn't go anymore, so it turned back on itself and made one rosette. And this warm water came right to the North Pole. And this ice, as it came down, it melted and created one hole in the ice at the old North Pole. One ring of ice, kilometer walls around it, but there in the middle was this warm water keeping this Gulf of Finland free of ice. And these people, this Bock family, these Oz people, they didn't freeze. But now they don't have 24-hour sun running around banana papaya. Now they have 6 months of dark, freezing cold as the poles like this, and 6 months of beautiful sunshine shining into the hole in the summertime. But now we get seasons. Now we get arctical times. And these Bock family now, they have to start to live very, very different, because now all the lands are ice. England, Scotland, Ireland, Saxon land, Switzerland, Frankenland. Russia was called Rusland, Finland, Greenland, Svealand, Norland. And all these lands were covered with ice. All the lands were ice. But below the Pyrenees Mountains, you don't have lands. You have Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, Morocco, Argentina. There's no lands, except for New Zealand and Swaziland, named by the Dutch and the English. So all the lands froze. But below the Pyrenees Mountains, it didn't freeze, and the people lived. All Northern Europe, all Scandinavia, everybody froze except in one ring of land at the old North Pole. And these people now, they're stuck in isolation. There's no more contact with the rest of the Von people on the planet. Everybody thought that hell froze over. And now these people inside this hole in the ice, they have to start to live a completely different life. Outside this cap of ice, there become all these people, these Von people who survived, these brown-skinned people, these Von people with the brown eyes, vegetarian, from the Paradise time. There were 10 of these Robbies, these children makers, bringing the sperm out from the Rosette family. There were 10 of these guys who were outside this ice. And they divided the planet into 10 different tropical races of people. With 10 from the Von language, from one language, they create 10 languages. And we get 10 different tropical arts. 10 different tropical hearts. Because each of these races will have a different form of heart. And these 10 tropical races still exist today. I'll go through the 10 races of tropical people. So 10 different tropical races are created in this Uden thing, when this Ragnarok, when this planet tilted over and this ice age began. The first of these tropical races, I'll start from where I live, Hawaii. And there they make the Polynesian people. And the Polynesian is Hawaii, New Zealand, the Maori people, the Tonga, Samoa, all these Polynesian islands. These are one tropical race of people, all with their own beautiful outlook, their art, their culture, with their language, which has been changed now. Number 2 tropical race is the Aborigine. If you come from the Polynesian, you come to Australia, you have these wonderful people down there called Aborigine, the Aboriginal people. And these people, they don't look anything like the Polynesian. They have their own outlook, they have a different heart design, and they have their culture and their didgeridoo and all the stuff that they have. The second. The third, you come up to these wonderful people where I'm sitting now, the Hindu people. All these nice people that make such a nice life for me. How I appreciate these Hindu people. And these Hindu people, they're not Polynesian. They're not Aborigine. They are their own race of people. And this race of people stretch from Afghanistan, Nepal, Ceylon, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Bali. This was all the Hindu people before. Very big. If you go above the Hindu people, you come to these beautiful other people called the Asian people, the Chinese. And they had one king there called Peking. Polynesian, Aborigine, Hindu, Peking, the Asian, with this beautiful eye that they have. My favorite eyes on the planet, these. If you come down from this, you come to the Greek, to the Persian. And this Greek, they had one mythology, they had one king called Sultan. And they had their mythology called Greek mythology. And they had their form of art in their art. If you come over from the Greek, the Persian, you come to the Roman mythology, which is Italy, Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, all these people around this Mediterranean, all these beautiful people with this honey, nice nose and eyes and face, the Roman Empire. Polynesian, Aborigine, Hindu, the Asian, the Chinese, the Greek, the Roman. In the south of Africa, you have these beautiful people we call blacks today, but they're actually blue. These South African. And these, they had a king called Sulemoon. Sul, the sun, U, the ring, Moon, the moon, Solomon, Sulemoon. This Roman had a king called Rasul. Ra, the moon, Sul, the sun, Rasul. If you come over, you come to what we call America today. We had three more. We had the Inca. He's his own race of people. The Mayan is his own race of people, and the Aztec in the north. Three red races. Inca, Mayan, Aztec, Solomon, South Africa, the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Chinese Empire, the Hindu Empire, the Polynesian, and the Aborigine. 10 tropical races still in existence today. So when this ice came, and each one of these got a different mythology. The Polynesians have mythologies, the Romans have mythology, the Greek has mythology, the Red Indian has mythology as the god and the goddess. It's before the religion. Meanwhile, we go back up to the top of this planet. We go back up to this hole in the ice where these Osser people, to this Atlantis. And now these people living in this new situation where they have 6 months of nice summer days and 6 months of dark, cold, freezing. They had to start to live very different than they did before. They couldn't go bare anymore because it was too cold 6 months. So they had to start to wear clothes for the first time. They started to wear bear skin on their bare body. They needed to grow food to store for the winter. In the tropical lands, you don't need to store the food. But in this article, you have 6 months that you can grow food and store. So they started agriculture for the first time. We had no really agriculture in the paradise. And there they made 4 grains: the wheat, the barley, the rye, and the oats. And they could grow these wheats, they could grow different things in the summertime, and they could store them so they had food to live in this dark. They also needed a new tree because these palm trees, they didn't grow so good in this ice. So from the palm tree, they started to create evergreen trees. So these evergreen trees, they're created by man for the Arctic because they could grow very quickly and they needed much wood to burn in this period of time. These people also had to start eating meat for the first time. We'd never eaten meat before. But now these people in this article, they had to eat meat. The tropics, you didn't have to eat the meat. The only animal before the ice time was the goat that had the clove hoof. And this family, since the goat was the symbolic for their family, they had no feeling to eat this goat. So they started to create new animals, man-made, article, domestical animals. And from the goat, they made the cow, the sheep, and the pig. From the wolf, they made the dog. From the dove, they made the pigeon. So these animals, from the peacock, they made the chicken. And all these animals are animals that live with the people. They're domestic animals. You can keep them in a barn in the winter and they can live and they can come out in the spring. If you take a tropical animal from down here and you put them into the barn up in they will die. So these are special animals. and they lived with the people. They also had one elephant that they domesticated, and they kept it, and it became an article elephant called the mastodon or the mammoth. So these people in hell, they started a new article animal. They started agriculture. They started article trees. They made up our games: chess, checkers, backgammon, Bock gammon, the game of the Bock. The cards. You have a card, 52 cards in a deck, 52 weeks in a year. Each suit has 13 cards. There's 13 weeks to each season. So this whole card system is built on now this 4 season. In the tropics, you only have one tropical season. But now in this article, they had 4 seasons. These people did many, many things inside this hole in the ice. But they lived there for 50 million years, this Bock family, continuing this story, passing this down, keeping this immune system, keeping this honeymoon, keeping this baptism system. 50 million years they live inside this hole in the ice. But 10,030 years ago, something starts to happen. This warm water that had come up from the Gulf of Mexico, that had been rerouted and gone into this Baltic Sea, into this Gulf of Finland, that had saved them in the beginning. It's called one Uden thing. Now this warm water over this long period of time has started to cut through the ice at the top of the planet. And as this warm water started to go over the top of the planet, these glaciers up in the Scandinavia, up in the Russia, all these ice sheets that had been sitting there for millions of years, now they were cut loose and they all started to slide down. And these people in hell, they understood that now they had to come out because these glaciers were going to destroy hell for the second time. The second Ragnarok was going to happen. These people knew there would be 3 destructions of hell. 10,030 years ago, this Bock family, inside this ice, they didn't have 7 daughters and 12 sons. They had 7 daughters and 7 sons because they weren't making so many people inside this hole in the ice. So 10,030 years ago, 30 people, they take one boat. The Bock, his woman, the swan, the mother and the father, the children makers, 7 sons, 7 daughters, and their tour friends, their best friends. 30 people take one boat out from hell into this Gulf of Finland, and in this boat they put some cows, some pigs, some sheep, some chickens, some dogs, some evergreens, some agricultural seeds and stuff. And these people, they come out from hell in this boat, and they come to one island called Gotland. Today it's called Gotland. It's one island between Sweden and Finland. And this island wasn't in the glaciers. It wasn't part of the fast land. And this warm water had kept this island free of any kind of glaciers. And these 30 people, 10,030 years ago, they come over to this island, and there they start to live in these caves up in a place called Visby. And there they make these rune stones. So you can still go to the museum today. You can see these rune stones. And inside these rune stones, they made something called rune script. And they made the story of hell. The whole story of hell. If you know how to look into these rune stones, you can see the whole mythology of the Scandinavia inside these rune stones. Eeyore used to explain these to us. These 30 people who came out 10,030 years ago to this island, there was a very big difference between them and the rest of the people living all in the south part of this planet, these 10 tropical races. These 30 people, they had yellow hair, white skin, and blue eyes. We had turned white inside this isolation period. So 10,030 years ago, there were 30 white people living on this planet on one island between Sweden and Finland. And from these 30 white people come the Arctical, a new race of people called Arctical. We have tropical animals, tropical people, and we have Arctical animals and Arctical people, and Arctical vegetation and tropical vegetation. And from these 30 white people with blue eyes and yellow hair and white skin come all Arctical, all blue and green eyes on this planet today. These people, Ra and Bock, in this Bock family, they start to create one new race of people called Arctical people. A is Asur, Re is again and again, and N is knowledge. You read the knowledge of the Asur, the Aryan people. And they go back to this 12 and 7 again, and they start to create the white people that come out from the north, from Finland originally. This is where the Arctical race of people also. About 9,600 years ago, the 10 brothers in the middle, they call them Han-U-Mans. Han is man, U is a ring, and man is man. Ha means to have, N means knowledge, U means a ring, and man is man. So one Han Udens man, he's one man who ha the knowledge of the ring, one Han Uman. And these 10 brothers, not the first one Ra, not the 12th one Bock, but these 10 brothers in the middle, they come out and they meet with these 10 tropical kings and queens of these 10 tropical races. So the first white man meets his brother after 50 million years. The Asur meet the Vanir again. They bring out agriculture and they give to the Vanir people the agriculture, because the Vanir, this agriculture was developed inside of Atlantis or Hell. They didn't bring the domestic animal out this time. And these 10 Arctical people tried to get one offering system going back up to Finland. One's giving the seed back up to the Father. 9,030 years ago. We're coming really close to the end now. 9,030 years ago. The ice now had come down in all Scandinavia, Sweden, Norway, Russia. This glaciers had come down and scraped everything down, but the ice was now free. And now these Bock family, this Finnish family who this story comes from, they want to go back to Hell and rebuild Hell again. But sometimes in this family, when they're making many, many children, sometimes they have more than 12 sons. They always keep Maya and her 6 sisters. There's 7 sisters who are making the future. But also, sometimes you had a 13th and 14th son. And this 13th and 14th son had no title. They were the 13th and 14th son from the highest family on the planet, but they didn't have a title because it was the father and the 12 sons. And these 2 boys, they didn't want to go back. They wanted to be kings themselves. They were on one ego trip. And these 2 brothers, one was called Dan and one was called Sven. And they were the V-I or V-E. V means we. 2 means 2. And kings means kings. We 2 kings. We were the Vikings. And this Dan, he goes down to the Danmark. Mark means land in root language. And Dan, he goes to Denmark. And from his seed come the Danish, the German, the Swiss, the English, the Belgium, and the Holland, and the England. And from Sven, he goes up to Uppsala in Sweden. And from Sven, he makes the Swedish, the Iceland, the Greenland, the Norland, the Irish, and the Scotland. So Scotland and Ireland were under the Swedish king of these Vikings, and the English was under the Danish king. So this problem with them was for a long time before the church came. They had different kings. The Irish and the Scottish, they come from the Viking line of Sven. England comes from the Viking line of Don, the Denmark. Two kings, we two kings. 9,030 years ago, we get two more article races of people. Bock and Ra, they go back to hell and they start to create the original white race of people. And from them, they start to move out to where Russia is. They would go out and there were these dals, these valleys. They would plant these pine trees, these evergreen trees. They would let these trees grow 50 years and then they set fire to them. And when these trees burned down, it put the fertilizer in these little valleys so they could grow their potato. So they came out from Helsinki, Finland, from hell. They started to go out over Russia, and now the population, so the Finnish people and the Russian people are the exact same people. They are the oldest white race of people on the planet. Dan made another article race with a different heart, and Sven, he went up and he made another tropical race. So there were 3 article races and 10 tropical races on this planet, still today. And there's a lot of mixed races. I'm part mixed. Most of us are mixed. A lot of us are mixed today. The Vikings, the Vikings, we two kings. They're from 9,030 years ago. If we go to about 6,000 years ago, if you bring a line straight from this hole, if you bring it straight down, it's one of these, what we call the meridian, or the meridian line. It was the old 0 line. Still on this island today, you can go to this museum that's built by the Russians in the end of the 19th century. If you go up to the 3rd floor, there's a round room straight above the hole in the granite. And there you can stand and you can put 1 foot here and 1 foot there. And you have 1 foot in the east and 1 foot in the west. That place still exists today. I've been many times up in this museum. And straight down from there is the Valhalla, is the hole in the top of the axle of the planet. It's 3 kilometers in front of Helsinki, Finland. If you come straight down on this line, it will come and it will divide one island in the Greek islands called Crete or Creta. And Creta is divided by this meridian line, the old 0 line, the time zone. This Greenwich Village has moved over there in the 18th or 17th century. But the real true 0 line comes from hell straight down through Hellas. The Os people from hell, Os, hell, Os, the old name for Greek. And it comes straight through Creta or Crete. And half of Crete, if you go to the Crete, you'll see on the east side is the old Greek mythology, Zeus and Pan. On the west side of Creta was the Roman mythology, this Jupiter and Bacchus. Later on, this Jupiter became the St. Peter Church in the Vatican, and later on this Greek, the Zeus, became this Pope over in Constantinople, which I'll come to in a minute. But if you come straight down from hell still today, you'll see one line that divides Crete in half, and that was the division between the east and the west. It comes back around through Hawaii on the other side and comes back up to hell on the back. And that divides the planet in half. If you come this other way, you have a line that goes out from hell that comes over Russia, it comes out over Sweden, Norway, and this is the other line that goes this way. So this planet is divided in 4, but the hole in the top is the very center of these 2 lines, a ring of land at the top of the planet with an X like this or a cross like this. And this is the 4 meridians. 6,000 years ago, there was a problem in this Rasul Sultan, this Greek and this Roman, in a country called Egypt. So they sent one of these more than 12 sons down as one ambassador from this highest family. And this guy, his name was Per Udens Ra. and he was the first Pharaoh, Father Ra, the father, one Pharaoh, one Pharaoh. And this guy, he's one white guy with blue eyes, white skin, yellow hair. He's an article guy. And from the Finland, he brings down one mathematical thing called pyramid, what we call pyramid. And in the mathematics, if I say in Europe the sound P, they get the association of a circle, a ring. In English, we would call it pi, because we make the E to be I. So one ring is called P in our story. It's a female. So the P is the ring. Ra is the pole, the radius. In Mede, in root language, Mede means middle. So if you start from the Mede, you make one the Ra, one radius. You turn the Ra in one P, in one circle. You have one P, Ra, Mede. And all mathematics comes from a P, a Ra, in a mid-center. And Pi has to do with fire, pyro, the pyro man. It's a female symbol, the pyramid. And this Peruvian's Ra, he comes down with some kind of a knowledge about how they start to build these pyramids up and down this Nile River. But he goes on one ego trip, one ego trip. And he calls himself Ra, the sun. Ra is not the sun. Ra is the moon. Ra makes the Ras. Ra here in India, they say Shan Ra. Shan Ra for the moon. If you look in the moon, you'll see one rabbit, one Ra beat. So Ra for us is the moon. But he calls himself Ra, the Sun King. And he goes on one big story down there. And much chaos comes out. So these pyramids, they come out from the Finland. The word pyramid comes from the root language, pyramid. If the pyramid's like this, the point down is called kyramid. It's masculine if it's pointing down. If it's pointing up, it's feminine. And the fire is in the middle. If we go to about 3,800 years ago, we have another jump out from this family. From the highest family on the planet, the Bock family, the family of Bock, the family of good, the God family. And this is one article guy who leaves from hell, one of these more than 12 sons. He's a white guy, blue eyes or green eyes, yellow hair. And he comes to the Hindustan with one woman called Radha. And now this guy, he brings one cow from Finland. He brings one of these domestic animals here to the Hindu people. And this guy, he's called Krishna. And Krishna, he's one article guy. And he brings one written language, the first written language for the Hindus. The Hindus had been speaking Hindi for millions of years. Very old language. Millions of years. And he brings one written called Sanskrit. In English, you can write one script. In root language, rune script. Script is writing. And San means true. So this Krishna, this white guy, he comes here and he comes to a place, to Delhi. And from Delhi, he goes down to a place called Pushkar. Pushkar. And there was one king from paradise, from the end of paradise, one tropical king who lived in one palace in the middle of one lake, in the middle of this Pushkar. And in this palace there was this king of all Hindustan, which reached from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Rajasthan, Hindustan, all of Nepal, all of Sri Lanka, Laos, Cambodia, Burma, Thailand, Malaysia, all the way to Bali, was all Hindu before. It was a very, very big. And there was one king of Hindu, one king, and he was called Narkasura. Narkasur. And this Narkasur, he was the sperm line for all the Hindu people. And there he had sons called Maharaja. Ma is the land, Ha means to have. So the Maharajas, they had the different sections of land, probably 10 different sections, since they were on the 10 system. And the sons of the Maharajas were called Rajas, and they're the Rabbis. The sons of the Rabbis are called Kar, Goankar, Kalangukar, Sudinkar, Valavakar, Pushkar, Gokarna, Karnataka. Kar is everywhere. So the Kar, they were the middle class here. And then they had the lower class called Gati. And Gati are the people who come and clean up the plastic, and they're the low class. And the son, the father of the Gati is the Kar. The father of the Kar is the Raja. The father of the Raja is the Maharaja. And the father of the Maharaja is Narkasura, the king. And this Krishna, he comes and he flips out and he writes his book called Mahabharata. And in this book, he puts himself as the savior of Hindustan. And he writes in there that he and his good friend Arjuna, his tour friend, they killed all the evil in all India. They killed all the evil. And when they got finished, there was no more evil. They killed the Pandavi. They killed all the evil, and Hindustan was perfect. But if you look today, this country's full of evil. He didn't fix anything. He made one chaos. He made one marriage system where now, instead of breeding up in this system before, now every man in the car class, he could only make children with car. In this upper class, you could only make, in the trail, you could only make children. So this whole breeding system fell apart, and he made it where now you stay with one woman for the rest of your life. This marriage system was not in the paradise. It was not in the Narkasur. In this Krishna, he killed Narkasur. And today, in Diwali, they burned the Narkasur. And the Brahmin priests run around here like they have the knowledge. They don't know where their heart is. They don't know where the soul comes. They just here collecting the money. And he makes one priest class. The name for the cow he brings here is called Brahma cow. It's the cow with the hump on the back. Bra means good. Man means man. So one Brahman comes straight out of the root dictionary. It's a good man. We have many names called Mr. Goodman, Mr. Goodman, Mr. Brahman. He comes from the Brahma cow that Krishna brought here. So this white guy, he's up there in the pushkar flipping out, completely destroying the old system of the Hindu people before. Now these people in Rajasthan, they call Rajas, which were actually the Rabbis from before, the Raja, the Rabbi, the Radia. These Rajas, they were the breeders, they were the children makers, they were the big strong guys. But now they had no job because this Krishna, he made this new marriage system. And they didn't know what to do. They couldn't stay here in Rajasthan. Stan means center, the center of the Rajas. So these Raja people, they were the Kar, Ra was the Ra, and they were the Van people, so they got on one caravan, and they left from the Rajasthan and they went to the Egypt. And when they get to the Egypt, they asked the Pharaoh, there's a white guy flipping out over there, he's taking over everything, and we don't know what to do. We were the children makers, and now he's got some kind of, you always see Krishna with all the gopis, he took over the breeding system. You see many of these Brahmins that have blue eyes, green eyes, so maybe he was even mixing the article. So this Pharaoh tells these Raja people, he says, look, you can stay in my country, it's okay, but you can't intermix, because in those days they didn't mix so much races of people. Today we do, it's normal, and all my friends and me, we're all mixes today. But in those days you didn't mix the race. So this Pharaoh, he tells these Rajas, he says, yes, you can stay here in the Egypt, but you have to stay off over there, and you can't really mix around so much with my race of people. And so these Raja people, they stayed there in the Egypt for several hundred years. They can't come back here because Krishna has completely started the Kali Yuga, basically. He started the chaos here in this new system. But now these Raja people, they get kind of fed up with this system in Egypt. So they send one message up to hell. They ask for help from hell. They want to go to the true Holy Land. That's what they want. And now we have one woman from this highest family, not one of these 7 daughters, one of these more than 7. They call them Moors. And this woman, she comes down from hell, and she breaks out, and she goes on her own story. And she comes down to the Egypt, and she takes these Raja people out from Egypt, and she tells them, I will take you to the Holy Land. But hell was the Holy Land. And she doesn't take them to hell. She takes them to Palestine, where Palestine is today. And there she says, this is the Holy Land. And now this woman, she is called Mor Say. Mor means mother. Say means to say Moses was a woman. And this Moses, she writes the first book, the first black letter on white paper, called Torah book. Tur is your best friend, your heart friend is your Tur, and Ra is the king, and also Ra comes out of the Tur, and the seed is the Tur, is the Ra. And this Torah book is one book about this angry God who sits up there somewhere, who made everything on the first and second and third day. And this introduction of one God had never existed before. In the mythologies, you have gods and goddesses. You have Shiva, Parvati. You have Rama, Sita, Lakshman, Saraswati. You have Durga. You have many, many females. So in the mythologies, there's women. So the women have the women temples to go to, and the men, we have the men temples. We go to the Shiva temple. She goes to the Parvati temple before. So these Raja people, they were used to a mythology system, this whole new idea that there's just one male god sitting up there. Some of them didn't go for this book. They couldn't accept it. So they left, and they had brought the sitar from Hindustan, and they brought it to the Middle East, and there they made it into the guitar. So the guitar, its parent is the sitar, but the guitar is easier to carry around. And these people who left, they become the gypsies today. And the gypsies left in their wagons, and they never could. They've been traveling all over Europe for all these hundreds of years with no place to be. And still the gypsies, they still speak Hindi language. They know they come from here. There's some gypsies in Finland, Spain. So the people who could see very deep, the deep seas, the gypsies, they didn't go for the God book, the Torah book, and they left. But the children who stayed there in what they call the Israel today, it's not the Holy Land. There's no hole on the top of the E in Israel. The Holy Land is the land at the top of the E where the hole is. That's where Helsinki or hell was. That's the true Holy Land. But this Moses, she says, this is the Holy Land, and now some of these people, over 2 generations, they take in this book of this one male God that has no goddess involved at all. There's no God. There's no female in it. It's all masculine in this. And maybe some of these people, they left, and they came back to India, and I think maybe these could be the Sikh people today. So the gypsies went into Europe. Some of them stayed there in the Persia, and some of them tried to get back here because they didn't want to stay there. They didn't want to stay in Europe. And so I'm not going to say 100%, but I think that these Sikh people, they're very big. They're like the Rabbis. They would be like breeders. The Holy Land. the land at the top of the E where the hole is, the land. Udenma is the Holy Land. 2,500 years ago, there come another one of these more than 12 sons. He was one messenger. And in root language, the sound bood. Bood means message. So this guy, he's taking the Asener's bood. He's bringing one message from the Aser people called Buddha. And this Buddha, he's one article guy who comes up here to Nepal, and he starts to put one philosophy, not a religion, not a mythology. Buddhism is a philosophy about how if you live this certain kind of life, you can stay out of the Kali Yuga, because these people knew there was going to be complete chaos. And the Buddhist thing is that you come up and you build some temples up in the hills, and you stay out of the cities, you stay out of the madness, and you can meditate and keep their thinkers, these Buddhist people. It was one time when they were trying to fix, because they knew that the Krishna had really messed up things here, and they were trying to give some kind of a alternative to the suffering in the city. So these Buddhists still today, they live up in the hills, they come down and get the food and they go back up. They have less suffering than the people in the city. So this Buddha, he's quite a nice guy. He's a thinker, and these Buddhist people are quite nice people. I spend much time with them as I do the Hindu people. Myself, personally, I really like to stay with the Hindus and the Buddhists. Or at least I'll say I like to stay with the native people, the indigenous people. The Hawaiians are very nice too, the Red Indians. 2,000 years ago, we have a situation in hell, in the top of the planet, where one of these more than 12 sons from the highest family, but one of these more than 12 brothers, he makes his sister, not one of these 7 sisters, but one of the more than 7 sisters. By the time you had 12 sons, you had more than 7 sisters. In this highest family, and this brother, he gets his sister pregnant. Her name was Margaret. And this is a little bit out from this upper family, so they put this mama and this papa with this baby in the stomach. They had to leave from the hell. They couldn't stay up there. It was a little bit shame story. And so this mama and papa, mama and the pregnant mama and the papa, I don't know what his name was, they walk across the Finnish Gulf. In the middle of the winter, you can walk straight down to Europe from Finland. The whole Gulf is frozen. And they walk down to where the Persia is today. And there this little boy, he comes out. And this little boy, his name is Jesus. Jesus. He's coming from the highest family on the planet, but it was the father and his brother-sister story. And this mother had got some kind of a testament, some kind of a future story. And this boy, he's raised in the court of the Sultan in Constantinople. He's from the highest family on the planet, his mother and father are. He's raised in the court of the Sultan, which is a very high situation. And from there he moves over to the court of the Pharaoh. And there this Jesus boy, he's raised in this court of the Pharaoh. As a young man, he decides he wants to go traveling. His mother had given him some kind of a testament. And this boy, he comes to a place called Hindustan, this Jesus. And he spent many years here traveling with the sadhus, the babas. And one day, he comes with the idea that in most mythologies, in most the religions, they say that one day there would come somebody who would fix this whole planet. Somebody would have the knowledge. The Jewish people in their book, they call him the Messiah or the Messiah. And this Jesus, he decides that he is this guy. And he gets the car people, the Bond class. the caravan, and they take him out from the Hindu, and they take him back to where the Israel is today. He had never been there before in his life. And there he starts to talk that I'm the guy you're waiting for. I'm the Messiah. I'm the Christ. And these Hebrew people start to listen to this story, and they didn't go for it. And it says that they took him on one stick. They tied him on one stick. They didn't nail him on any cross. They tied and they threw rotten tomatoes at him. And in the end, his friends took him down, and he came back, and he died up in northern India. And still today, there's a little place up in Kashmir, in Srinagar, near Dal Lake. You can still go over, and there's still a temple there for Jesus. The Muslims and the Hindus take care for it. The Christians don't, and this is what they say. They said he died here, a very high, respected man, Baba. They burned him, and they put his ashes in the Ganges River. And this family they say he died here, and there's people here who say he never died on the cross. The cross was actually the highest symbol. It was a symbol for Tur, our Father who stood on top of the planet. He stood up there completely bare with two gold rings like this, and he was the highest symbol, your Tur friend, your best friend. But this church, they wanted to make it to be negative, and they put one story where they have your best friend dead on a cross. You can't have a best friend dead. Your best friend has to be alive. So this dead Jesus on the cross is one lie. He died here in India, and actually in Hindu. This is the Jesus story, basically. From the highest family on the planet, but he didn't fix anything. We're in chaos today. 1,500 years ago, you had another one of these brothers jump out from the highest family on the planet. In the Van language, the name for God is called Yumala. Yuma'Allah, Allah. And this other brother, he is called Muhammad. He comes down and he starts this Muslim race about 1,500 years ago. And they do what they do today. The thing in these three religions, the Jewish, the Catholic, the Muslim, I have nothing against these people. I have both friends, nice Muslim friends. I have nice Jewish friends. I have nice Catholic friends. But the religion, I'm a pro-pagan. I'm for the pagans. And according to the doctrine, people say if you don't believe in the Jesus, you go to hell. There's nothing good for you. The Muslims say if you don't believe in the Muhammad, you go to hell. There's nothing good for you. And the Jewish people say, hey, you're all wrong. In the end, the book says we're the only ones going. So all these religions are saying, if you're not like us, in this story it's not like that. Everybody goes to heaven in our story. There is nobody. All soul goes back to the whole. There's no good place and bad place for good people or bad people. I don't have to be Catholic to go to heaven. I don't have to be Muslim to go to heaven. And I don't have to be Jewish to go to heaven. Hindus can go, Buddhists can go, pagans can go. We all go. My cat goes, my mother goes. All living things, their soul goes back to the hole on the top of the pole when we're sitting up like this. The Jesus story. We come to the year 325. Now we're in the last few minutes. Very, very few minutes. Maybe 5 minutes. There had been one information system, one children-making system coming from the North Pole as we came out since the beginning of the human race, since the first 2P in the first pole. One children-making system coming, one information system, and hell was that place. Hell was the beginning. It was the king of it was the center for the pagan people, for the heading people, from the hiding people. But now, this Vatican, this church, they want to take over the information system of the planet. These two kings who lived on Crete Sultan and Rasul. Sultan, he came up and he made one arm for the church, the Christian church. And this Jupiter, this Rasul, he goes up to the Vatican and he creates a pope there. So now, around 1700 years ago, we start to get one pope for the Roman Catholic, and we get one pope for the Greek Orthodox. And these two popes, they're like two arms coming out. And as this, we'll take the Catholic side. As this Catholic, they start to send the priest, and they create one language called Latin. It's one bureaucratic language created by the Pope. And this Latin, as Eeyore said, it's one of the biggest abortions of the sound system. They make an oak tree of Papuvipapacius. But anyway, this Latin, they name everything. They name the whole nature. They do quite a job. But it's one bureaucratic written language that only the priest could read and understand. The regular people in the pagan times, we didn't read books. Everything was oral. It was coming from Ra. We were oral people. So before your mother tongue was given to the children small, and it was all oral. We had no books, no written languages before. But now they make this secret language, written language, where now these priests are going up into France. They're going up into England, Scotland, Ireland, into Saxonland. And these priests, they're coming, they're like spies for the Vatican. The Greek Orthodox are doing the same. They're sending the priests up into Iran, Iraq, and these priests are seeing who the shamans are. They're seeing who the wise people, the elders. And they're writing down in their Greek Orthodox language and then in their Latin, they're writing letters back to the Pope and to this Protestant, to this Catholic Pope and to this Greek Orthodox Pope. And now this Pope is reading about who he needs to, because if you kill the shamans, you kill the people with the knowledge. The people, they have to come for the new. So now, as this church comes into England, the pagan king of England, he cannot be king anymore because Jesus is the king. As this church comes into Scotland, the pagan king, he can't be the king because Jesus is the king. As they come into Saxon land, Germany, the Saxon king, he can't be king because Jesus is the king. So they start to take these old pagan kings out and replace them with Vatican kings, church kings. And so now all these books we read about today of these terrible kings we've had in the last 1,000 years, these are not pagan kings. There's no books written about the pagan kings. These are all kings that were underneath the church. And they start to eradicate. And they were burning 40,000 women a year in Middle Europe for making tea. I didn't give the tea story earlier. Maybe I'll give that at the end. And so now this Pope, he knows just who he has to kill up there. He has to kill the shamans. And so they send up these people now who start to systematically take out all these people they call witches and all these people who were pro-pagan people. And these Viking people up in Scandinavia, they see this church is coming and they understand that this church is going to kill out their system. So they start to create these boats going down, and these boats are leaving out from Denmark, Sweden. They're going down, these Vikings. This is the story they write in the books. They think they're only 500. They're actually 9,000 years old. But now these Vikings are coming down and they're going to England, France, and they're going into the villages, but they're not hurting the people in the village. They're only after the church. The church is coming after them. They've already wiped out all the wise people. So they ransack the church, they steal all their silver, they send it all back up, And they go all the way to the Vatican, all the way to Italy. But these Viking people were not, they're not anything what they say on the television today. They were just trying to go against the church because they saw the church coming up. In 987, the Greek Orthodox Church comes to the door of Russia. And now these Russian people, who were the same as the Finnish people, they had to go now start to be underneath this Pope from Constantinople. A few years later, 1008, this Roman Catholic now comes into Sweden. 987, they go into the Russia. 1008, they come in Sweden, and there's a small little country in between called Finland. And Finland, in the south of Finland, is this old ancient pagan center called Hell. And they've already written in their book that Hell's the worst place on the planet. It's where the bad people go. In 1049, they get their first Saxon Pope, what we call Germany today. And this guy, he's called Leo the Ninth. And this Leo the Ninth, he now becomes head of this Vatican. And this Vatican, they pay a country called Helvetia, which is Switzerland today. And they go to this Helvetia, this church, and they pay 30,000 mercenary army killers for money. Like our armies today, they're all killers for money. They all get paid, these army people today. And these 30,000 men paid gold from the Vatican. They go up through Europe, and they come up to the Sweden. And in 1050, they take this king, this pagan king of Sweden, and they take one archbishop or one bishop or somebody, and they go to one island called Åland, which is between Sweden and Finland, and they kill everybody on this island. This 30,000 mercenary Helvetian army hired by the Pope. And on the 24th of 7, on the 24th of July, in the year 1050, this 30,000 killing mercenary army, are they doing that on purpose, you think? This army, it comes to where hell is, where Helsinki to Uudenmaa today. And this 30,000 men, they make one ring around hell. Hell was 250 kilometers across, with this hole in the very center, this ring where this 4 meridian lines come down. And they make a ring around this hell, and these 30,000 men all come towards the center, and they kill everybody in southern Finland. And they're after this Bock family, because they want to kill this Bock family. This Bock family, in 987, they closed this temple that I was talking about earlier. This Lemminkainen temple with this golden spiral street going down that we've been working for many years to try to go into. They seal this up because they don't want this church to find what's inside this. So 987, when the Greek Orthodox came into Russia, they sealed it up, and they said that the Bock, who was alive in 1,000 years, should open this temple and show it to the people of the planet and give it to the people. And Eeyore was that Bock. In 1987, a group of us met in Helsinki. Eeyore started to tell us about this temple and this storehouse, and we started to dig. I started to dig myself. And this first year we dug, and there's a whole story about the temple, which I'm not going to go into. But on this 987, they closed it up. 1008, this church comes in, and on this 1050, on the 24th of 7, on Christina Day, the Ragnarok Day, the third Ragnarok, the third destruction of hell happened. And this church came in and killed all the Finnish people. They destroyed hell. They cut all of our family trees down and burned them. And this Bock family, they ran out from hell. They went into exile. And they buried a bunch of artifacts in different places in Finland. which the Finnish government will not let us go dig them up. There's actually physical, there's golden Bocks, there's all kinds of things buried in Finland today, but they're all on government or church property, and they won't let us touch them. They don't want anything to do with Eeyore. All they could do for years and years while he was alive was to talk shit about Eeyore. Eeyore put so much negative about this guy, and he was the sweetest man I ever knew in my life. He didn't have a mean bone in his body. And everything that I know today, I got from him. It's in my words. These are not his words, but this is my understanding of what I got from this man, this story today. And I've never heard another story that made any sense even close to this. The heart. The white people, where did we come from? How did we evolve? How did we get knowledge if we came from the monkeys? This story goes and explains every little detail that scientists and all these people are blah, blah, blah about in their one theory after another theory after another theory. And so this family, they ran up into the north of Finland. The Ra and the Maya, they go up to a little castle about 500 kilometers north of Hell. There's a little miniature castle. It's a ruin today, but still in the middle of a river was a little small castle. And the king and the queen of Finland, they lived there in 1050 because all southern Finland was completely burned and destroyed. This Allfather, this Bock, and this Allmother, they went up into the north of Finland, way up into the north. And before, when they lived in the south, this Bock, he always had a cart with 8 goats, and everybody could see there goes the Bock, and he had 8 goats that was taking his little cart around. But in 1050, when they got up into the Lapland, into the north of Finland, he couldn't go in the snow with the goats, so there he got 8 reindeers and a sled. And this whole Father Christmas, it all comes from the north of Finland, from a place called Korvatrinti. It's my friend's family. There really was a Santa Claus. And so from 1050 to 1250, they stayed in exile. The Ra and Maya stayed in this little castle, Kajaani Castle, in the middle of a river. And this Bock and his story stayed way up in the top. In 1248, they met with the king of Sweden. And the Swedish king says, look, you cannot come back down, and there cannot be a king and queen of Finland anymore. You're going to have to come underneath Sweden. So in 1048, the Finnish become part of Sweden. They made a shake of a hand, and they said that they would not tell anything about this story until 1984. And the Bock family agreed. 1984, they could speak about this story. They came back down. They divided the family into Bockstrom and Rostrom, the stream of the Bock, the stream of the Ra. And there, this family, they started to live back in South Finland in 1250. In 1550, 500 years after the destruction of Hell, this Bock family, they moved a bunch of people over to where Helsinki, and they started to rebuild Hell. But then they didn't call it Hell anymore. They call it Helsingfors or Helsinki. We can sing for the key to Hell, Helsinki. And this family, they kept this saga, and inside this family till they got down to this last son of the family, Eeyore Bock. His grandfather, Carl Gustav Bockstrom, and his swan, Hilda Matilda, or Ava Maseva. They sent this story down to his father, Knut Victor Bockstrom, and to his aunt, Christina Victoria Bockstrom, who gave the story to his mother, Rhea Bockstrom, and his sister, Raquel Bockstrom. And in 7 years, at the age of 7, Eeyore Bock sat for 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, as his mother and sister for 20 years of his life. If he missed 1 day, it was 4 hours the next day, 7 days a week for 20 years, 2 hours a day. And these 2 women gave to my friend the Bock Saga. 1984, he was allowed to give the story because they had shook the hand in 1248 with the Swedish king. And on February the 24th, down here in Shapura, Mr. Bock, he let this Asur Babori say Shara Day Dog. He gave this alphabet with the meanings in the Bock Saga to a small group of people. And that's the story as I understand it, as honest as I can tell it. I can make mistakes, but even if there's some mistakes, they're not big mistakes. And this is the best that I can explain. There's much. For every 10 minutes of saga I gave tonight, there's hours of explanation behind this. I made this as small as I could. I left some parts out. There's much, much more to be spoken about in this story. But it's down, and this is the Bock Saga. Is the best is Jim Chesnar. My name is Jim Chesnar. I didn't say that in the beginning. It's the best that I understand it. Thank y'all very much for being patient.